When it comes to PlayStation, you can usually guarantee that a first, second, or third-party exclusive will drop to a huge marketing blitz and usually solid reviews. It's an event, and the company makes sure you know about it. However, there have been times, whether because the title didn't turn out as well as the publisher expected, or simply because it didn't believe in it enough, where games have been pushed out the door, seemingly to just fend for themselves. With that in mind, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video games PlayStation sent out today. Number 10, Drive Club PS4. It's easy to forget now, considering how much Sony dominated the end of the generation with top-tier exclusives and amazing new franchises, just how weird the early years of the PS4 were. Case in point is Drive Club, the company's first next-gen racer and, really, their first attempt at a live service game. Not only was this gonna be a flagship game for the console, but it was also gonna bolster Sony's subscription service, releasing on PS Plus. Sadly, trouble came for the title quickly, as the project received huge delays, and the messaging became quickly muddy about whether the game would indeed be coming to PS Plus or not. What was supposed to be a big splash eventually just limped out onto the console, to the point where it kind of felt like Sony were cutting their losses and pushing the title out because they were obligated to. Unfortunately, the end product itself was plagued with glitches at launch, resulting in fans wondering what the hell happened. Now, Drive Club did eventually pull itself around and become a great game, but at launch, it was a total disaster. Number 9, Haze PS3. One of the most dangerous things that any gaming studio can do to an upcoming title is oversell it. And instead of letting Haze speak for itself, Ubisoft's first-person shooter was labeled as a Halo killer almost instantly, giving it absolutely massive shoes to fill. Though, to be fair, because of how much effort the company was putting into its marketing, it really looked like Ubisoft and PlayStation were confident that this shooter would give Microsoft's crown jewel a run for its money. But not only did Haze fall short, it was an all-around garbage fire, suffering from idiotic AI, glitch-ridden gameplay, a microscopically sized campaign mode, blurry visuals, a barren multiplayer, an incoherent plot, jittery animations, whiny characters, and dire combat mechanics. And that's just the start of it. The only thing this supposed Halo killer managed to kill was any chance at Haze becoming a franchise. Oi oi. Number 8, Shadow of the Beast PS4. The original Shadow of the Beast was a platformer from the bygone days of gaming, which is best remembered for being, not particularly memorable. And that's because as far as platformers go, it was kind of as bland as they get. For some reason though, Heavy Spectrum Entertainment Labs and XDev were psyched to turn this underwhelming title into a hack-and-slash reboot. And as unwise as this idea sounds, there was some potential there. I mean, it's not like they could make a game worse than its predecessor, right? Well, somehow life found a way, and this remake felt just as bland and uninspired as ever. Considering that some gamers bought this PS4 title just so they could play the original, which came as a bonus, the developers must have known how badly they screwed up. Number 7, Horizon Forbidden West PS4/PS5. Now, not all video games that are sent out to die deserve it. Horizon Forbidden West, for instance, absolutely rules. It's one of the very best games of this year so far, but sadly it came out in an incredibly crowded launch period. Even then though, you can kind of excuse Sony for not thinking that would matter too much. After all, this is one of their biggest franchises, but for as big as Horizon is, it still couldn't compete with a little game called Elden Ring. Unsurprisingly, Horizon's sequel sales were way lower than projected, despite receiving rave reviews, because this huge multi-platform game became a genuine pop culture phenomenon around the same time. Worst still, Forbidden West suffered a staggering decline in sales the instant Elden Ring dropped, and in the UK, sales plummeted by up to 80% 1 week after the game's launch. And again, this is a huge shame because the game is good. If Guerrilla Games released Forbidden West during the summer, for instance, it probably would have had far less competition and sold way more. Number 6, Destruction All-Stars PS5. Every aspect of Destruction All-Stars was bungled so egregiously that this battle racer could never ever recover, even if it was amazing in the end, which, sadly, it was not. When Sony announced this PS5 exclusive would retail at $70 at launch, the gaming community was just completely baffled. But the controversy didn't stop at the price, as weeks before launch, Sony decided to delay ALLSTARS by 3 whole months, releasing it eventually for free on PlayStation Plus for its first 2 months on sale, and if that backpedaling sounds confusing, then we're not done. Because when ALLSTARS did release, players were bewildered by how little content there was in the game. And sadly, the only way to access the bulk of the title was by paying extra. Due to the last-minute delay, the flip-flopping, and the invasive microtransactions, Destruction All-Stars might be the Citizen Kane of mishandled video games. Number 5. KNACK PS4. Because first impressions matter a lot, it's crucial that launch titles for a new console are top of the line. Even though KNACK was, well, not that, Japan's studio was confident that this platforming beat-em-up could showcase the power of the PS4. Throughout the game, the titular hero collects relics, which increases his size and grants him different powers. And as cool as this idea sounds, it doesn't really work in practice, since the frame rate grinds to a halt if there are too many relics on screen. And considering the relics themselves are a core mechanic of the game, you'd think that that would be the first issue the developers fixed. Although it is admirable how KNACK tries to fuse jump and run sections with brawling gameplay, the two styles never quite meshed together either. The platforming areas were so rudimentary that it felt like KNACK was just a pale imitation of mascot platformers like Crash Bandicoot. However, it could have gotten away with its simplistic gameplay if, like Shovel Knight for instance, it felt like a throwback to old school platformers, but instead, this PS4 launch title just comes across as a strange way to show off then cutting edge tech. Number 4. KILLZONE 2 PS3. When Guerrilla Games' KILLZONE 2 was unveiled at E3 2005, viewers couldn't believe how good it looked. And that's not a figure of speech either. I mean, like, literally nobody believed what they were looking at. The upcoming shooter's visuals were so astounding that everyone just assumed that it was pre-rendered. And days later, it was revealed that this so-called in-game footage was exactly that. Now, it's not uncommon for companies to exaggerate or even flat out lie about their products to get people talking, but that's not what happened here, at least not intentionally. See, in an interview with Ars Technica, Guerrilla exec Angie Smets explained how this teaser was supposed to actually just be a proof of concept of, quote, what first-person games could look like for the next generation. Despite being for internal use only, Sony then went on to unveil the video at E3 against Guerrilla Games' wishes. Although the developers did nothing wrong here, KILLZONE 2 is now known for popularizing the fake game trailer trend we've seen so many times since at exhibition events. KILLZONE 2 may have received excellent reviews when it came out, but the gaming community still felt like Guerrilla Games deceived them through no fault of their own. Number 3. Concrete Genie PS4. Because Pixel Opus' first game, Entwined, was met with mixed reviews at launch, not much was expected from their follow-up, Concrete Genie. However, people quickly fell in love with the IP's paint-orientated gameplay and puzzles. Because the character's behavior is based on the portraits you create, Concrete Genie gave the player a deeply personal and immersive experience. And although the VR gameplay in it is very brief, this action-adventurer is amongst the select few that handled the technology well. Consequently, Pixel Opus must have been pretty chuffed with themselves when the game came out, since their little gem was nominated for 18 mainstream awards and managed to win Gamescom's Family Game of the Year. And while that is impressive, barely anyone has heard of Concrete Genie despite being released over 3 years ago. And that's because just before launch, it felt like there was no commercials for the game. No trailers, no online advertising, nothing. If you were one of the few who heard about Concrete Genie pre-launch and were excited about playing it, you mightn't have noticed that it came and went, but that's exactly what it did for most players. Considering most brand titles are advertised like crazy even if they're bad, it's a real pity watching original games like Concrete Genie fail to receive the attention they rightfully deserve. Number 2, Basement Crawl PS4. It's kind of challenging to harp on about Basement Crawl's failing since the game itself is so bare bones. While its main inspiration, that being the Bomberman series, had so much variety that you could play it for hours, after giving a Basement Crawl 5 minutes of your time, you've pretty much seen everything it has to offer. And if you thought the 8-player online mode could spice things up, well, the matchmaking loads slower than the Commodore 64. The reviews for this title subsequently were so overwhelmingly negative that the developer reworked the game's mechanics into a slightly improved remake called Brawl and released it freely to anyone who had the misfortune of purchasing this first game. Although you do kind of have to commend the devs for attempting to right their wrongs, it doesn't change the fact that the developers cranked out Brawl to apologize for their failure, and if a game feels like an apology rather than a game, then, well, that's not a good sign. Number 1, The Quiet Man PS4. While not a first-party exclusive or anything like that, The Quiet Man was still a PlayStation console exclusive for the PS4, which makes sense considering how often Sony and this game's publisher Square Enix like to team up. Now, on paper, The Quiet Man was the kind of ambitious concept that Sony would take a gamble on. It's a beat-em-up where you play as a deaf character, and to get you in the protagonist's headspace, the whole story is conveyed with muted sound and no subtitles. Likewise, to give The Quiet Man a more cinematic feel, the story itself is mainly told through detailed FMV sequences with live action performance. Sadly, what could have been truly special not only ended up being appalling, but the PS4 port in particular received a Metacritic score of only 28%, making it possibly one of the worst rated exclusives for the console. The game completely fumbled its subject matter, those FMV elements were amateur at best, and the actual gameplay was abysmal. It quickly became one of the strangest laughingstocks in gaming, and Sony didn't mind letting it die as soon as it was released. So, that's our list. I want to know what you guys think about these games. Did you play any of them at launch, and are any of them more deserving of the fate they got? Let me know, and while you're down there, could you please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture Gaming for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.